Hello, I'm Sharon Knowles and this is a harp video. Well, sort of. I'm a harp player, but I'm not making a video with harp in it. I'm doing something Scottish that my granny used to make, just to make life a little bit more interesting this OSAS. I hope you all remember the purple t-shirt, which I've had for a long time now. Anyway, so I'm going to show you how to make a very simple fruit cake. And that was a staple at my granny's when we went there on Sundays to have tea there. And tea was at like 5 o'clock or something like that. I suppose that would be called high teas in some places. But we just call it tea because they had their dinner at lunchtime. She would serve, well, sometimes it was cold meat, something really objectionable called tongue or ham or chicken, and lots of scones and cakes and bread and butter and jams and all sorts of things like that. It was really, really great. I loved it when I was a kid, especially the bits with chocolate on. And if you hear that little chirping in the background, that was the oven saying it had got to the right temperature. So we're actually going to make something right now. But first, the ingredients. So, I couldn't think of a way to pause the video, so what we're going to do is I'm going to start halfway through, but I'm going to talk you through the first part. And this will be on the Google Classroom site, the recipe with the ingredients, so if you're interested in making it yourself and want to taste it, it will be there for you. Plus, there's this video. So for your ingredients for this fruit cake, 1 cup of water, 1 cup of packed down light brown sugar, and packed down means really packed down, like this flour is packed down in this cup measurements. It's right to the top and sort of packed down. 1/4 cup of butter diced. You all know what that means. 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. 1/4 or 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. Now, if you love cloves, you can put in the bigger amount, but I find that the 1/4 teaspoon is quite enough clove flavour for me. 1 teaspoon of ground ginger and 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. Now, what you do with that is you put all that in a saucepan. But before you do that, you mixed a bunch of dried fruit in a bowl. Now the dried fruit, and for here I'm not using cup measurements, I prefer to use grams, the metric measurements, and it's 300 grams of seedless dried fruit. Now, to be traditional, it has to have certain things in it, things I call sultanas, but are the light coloured raisins, the normal dark coloured raisins, currants, dried currants. But you can also use other dried fruit as well, like cranberries, but that would make it an American fruit loaf, not a Scottish fruit loaf. So I use currants, raisins, dark and light, and currants, raisins, dark and light, so that's 3, the dark and the light. So the number of grams, it's 2 cups, but the number of grams is 300 grams. So because it's 3 different kinds of fruit, it's 100 grams each. That's why it's easy for me to figure out. So, and you put all that in a pot. But what I do is put the spices, the water and the sugar in first and let it heat up a little bit so the butter started melting. Then I just shove all the dried fruit in there, all your currants, raisins, light and dark, cranberries if you're going to use them, some other kind of fruit maybe, and then stir it up, and then bring it to the boil and let it boil, but gently, not really bubbling and furious, but fairly gentle boil for just 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, you end up with this. So, let me see if I can show you here. Yeah, so you can see what it looks like, all dark and gooey, and tastes really good too with all those spices in it. So, and you're supposed to leave that to cool, and I find it takes at least 50 minutes to cool. You might as well say an hour or something. You don't want it hot, you just want it lukewarm. And this is a little colder than that now, but it's totally fine. So here we are. We've done the first stage, which is making the fruit tasty and full of spices and things. I'm beginning to feel hungry now. So, and after that, excuse me, while you're waiting, well, you put your oven on. While you're waiting for this to cool, you can do the other things, but this is already cooled. So the oven's already on at 350, and the pan needs to be prepared. Now you need a loaf pan, just something like this Pyrex dish. If you use a dark one, you're supposed to put the temperature to 325 instead of 350. I think that's got to do with heat conduction or something like that. Now you don't just have the pan like that, you're supposed to butter it and put, I was going to say greaseproof paper, that's the British or Scottish version, it's parchment paper here. Boy, that caused me a lot of trouble when I first emigrated, I can tell you, amongst many other things. Now I keep butter papers for this purpose, but you can melt some butter in a little cup and use a brush to brush all the way around here. But what I'm going to do is just rub this all over here. On the walls. Make sure you get it good. And then your previously cut out parchment paper, which is the bottom, you just cut round there. Just draw around the edge of your bowl, having placed it on parchment paper, and then put it in. Well, actually, before you put it in, butter one side. If you're using butter from a cup and a brush, you don't need to do this, but I'm doing this way because it's easier. And then you put it in butter side up. That's that ready. Right, we've done the oven and the shelves in the middle, more or less. And now we're going to start mixing all the other ingredients. So in a bowl, we're going to mix the flour with the baking soda. Right, so we need 1.5 cups of flour, and here they are, 1 cup. Stuck. Put that there. Here's half. Put that in here. And then the baking soda. And you need, I've got a big plastic thing of baking soda. 1 teaspoon. This lasts a long time, I can tell you. And when I'm doing a teaspoon of things, unless it says otherwise, I scrape my finger across. Let me do that again. So here's that's heat, but I scrape my finger across so it's level, a level teaspoon. I'm not sure why I always do that, but I think I was told to do that once by somebody, and I've kept on doing it. Okay, so that's the baking soda. And then you take a wire whisk and just go wee, like this. So instead of all lumpy, it's getting all smooth, and of course you're mixing in the baking soda at the same time. Happy days, happy days. I'm not sure if people like my gran, well, she died many years ago, obviously, well, not necessarily obviously, but she died many years ago, and I've now come to realise that she wasn't that brilliant a cook, but she was good at baking actually. Her cooking was okay, but her baking was really good. She had a very light touch, and she never used a recipe book either. Which I'm too scared not to use some kind of instruction. Well, apart from some very obvious things that I've been doing a long time, like bread making and things. Anyway, so this is the flour. Let's put that here for now. And in another bowl, we're going to mix the eggs, which I have previously taken out of the shell. These are eggs from my own chickens. And you can use the same whisk. Now you don't beat these eggs to death, you just beat lightly. I've never really understood what that means. But often the instructions for egg beating will say beat until it just comes straight off the whisk or something like that, instead of in threads, but that's enough. That might actually be a bit too much. That would be normal, more like normal whisking, but it's still a lot of egg coming down there instead of it being more liquidy is what I really mean. So there you have the egg. Put the egg here. So now we want to switch to a nice large bowl. Can't get much bigger than this. And we're going to put our dried fruit in here. That spoon to get the last few droplets here. Here. Put this pan over here. Now, so in you have it, in you go there. Now, so the first thing you're going to put in is the egg. And I'm looking at the instructions here just so I don't do anything wrong. But you add the eggs and you mix. The eggs are they're so yellow, they're much deeper yellow colour than this. I don't know if you saw that when I was doing that. That's one of the differences between what I call real eggs and pretend eggs from those poor battery chickens. Anyway, so the next thing we're going to add in, I think, is the flour. Fold in the flour, right? So I'm just going to dump it in. Now, in order to fold it in, I need another implement, which is round the corner. I'm still here, somewhere. Sorry about that. Don't you love it when people just disappear? Anyway, so it's a sort of spatula thing, and folding is a more gentle action than stirring. So we just go sort of round and round rather than fold over, rather than stir. So I don't know if you can see that. There you go. It's not ready yet. I have to get the flour mixed in. It's looking a bit browner now. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to add in the mixed peel. Now, mixed peel is the thing that makes it really very Britishy Scottish, and it's quite hard to find actually, but you can find it online. So you just pour it in and mix that around too. Now, if you're going to use vanilla, this is the time when you put that in as well. It's a very colourful mixture. This looks like proper fruit cake. Look at that. It's very pretty. We can see the green and the orange and the red. It's good. Now, because I'm in my own house, there are occasional distractions and I can hear a cat yelling, so if you'll excuse me to go over to this door and see who it is. Annabelle. Come on, hurry up. I'm on the video. At least the horses won't disrupt me in the house. That's one thing to be grateful for. Right, so we have this mixture now, and the next thing you have to do is put it in the loaf pan. So we're going to do that. We'll put that here. Oh, I'm going to need some help with the spatula. Boink. It's pretty amazing. You're getting all that resin from just 1 teaspoon of baking soda and egg. Eggs, 2 eggs. Right, now, you don't just leave it stuck in like that. See, it's all lumped in there. You have to smooth it out a bit in the corners and everything. I made a strawberry loaf 2 days ago, but I was in a real hurry, so I basically just shoved it in and went sort of like that to straighten it out and shoved it in the oven. But it came out it tasted great, but it came out a slightly weird shape. And for this, you can look at the bottom and see that it's filling there aren't any holes. Actually, there is a hole at this side. That's what you really need to check for. Although with a cake, it should be quite easy. Right, so now it's ready to go in the oven. Just a quick wipe around the side. So as I said, 350. And it takes forever to do. I'll talk about that in a minute. I'm just going to put this in the oven, which is just over there. Okay, sorry. I've put it in for an hour. Now, it can take anything from 55 minutes, and the one I made prior to this video took an hour and 20 minutes. So it just depends on your oven and your atmosphere and anything else that affects baking. And also, you should really turn it halfway through. so that it gets evenly cooked after half an hour or something like that. So let's talk a bit more about the ingredients before I show you the finished product. Pity you can't taste it, eh? So water, yes. 1 cup of light brown sugar. Well, we all know what that is, but it'd be interesting to try dark brown sugar and see what difference that made. I sometimes do that with recipes. But butter, yes. Cinnamon, cloves, ground ginger, kosher salt. The dried fruit. Now, currants aren't that easy to find, and I'm finding that the light coloured raisins aren't that easy to find around where I am, which is a pretty rural area actually. So I usually have to resort to online to get some of these things. Eggs, fine. All-purpose flour, fine. Baking soda, fine. Vanilla extract, if you're using it, fine. 1 cup of mixed peel. Now, I cannot get mixed peel. I have to order that online. So in the usual places where you might be ordering online, she said. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, I think. So if you can use different things, but I'm picking the standard combination for a fruitcake for tea in Scotland that I used to have when I was at home. It would also be interesting to try a different shape, like a round cake tin or something like that. I've made a lot of these, but I haven't got round to experimenting with a round cake tin yet. It would probably have to have quite high sides, and the cooking time would also change because it's a bigger area, which might be an advantage actually, because then it would look like a cake, and you could put little almonds on it like a Dundee cake or something and totally deceive everybody. Because the normal fruit cake, or some of you have probably been shouting for the whole video, is the one where you brush it with alcohol every now and again, like at Christmas cake, where you have to make it months in advance, and you brush it with alcohol every so often, so that it is infused with brandy or whatever you're going to choose for Christmas Day, and the flavour of your cake. This is called easy and quick Christmas cake, easy and quick fruit cake, but it tastes really good. Now let me get this out of line here, because what we're going to do now is have a look at the finished product. And here it is. This is depending on who's watching this, this chicken shape will be amusing for at least one person. So now, and I get the knife, which is here too, which is here, oh it's here, and we're going to open it. Now, I haven't carved into this one, I only made it today in preparation for making this video, so let's hope it works out. Now, in order to find out it's ready, you take a toothpick or something long and the smooth needle-like thing and stick it in. Now, it needs to come out clean without anything clinging to it, and that's, you know, I took this out like 5 times and kept on lengthening the time. Now, it's supposed to be dark like this. This is how it's supposed to be. Okay, let's find out what it's like inside. Now, this loaf shape's sort of awkward, but that's where I'm going to cut it. This could be a disaster. But it isn't. Yay! So there we go. And you can see everything in there. I suppose you could even put nuts in. Oh, I'm getting that spicy scent from it immediately. Smells just like fruitcake. This is a really great recipe. And you could do it for Christmas and all sorts of things. It's just delicious. It's soft. It looks hard, but it's actually soft. Oops, it's falling apart. Soft, so I can put my finger in it. It's like very sultana bread or something like that. That's the kind of texture it's got. And there's a bit there. Really cool. Let me bring that closer so you can see. You can see all the bits and pieces glinting in there. There's even cherries in there. I can see that at the bottom. Anyway, so that is how to make a simple fruit cake that my granny used to make.